Hey, Milo and Mel Gibson. This is Carlton with the Hey You Trust Me Foundation. I have the perfect screenplay for you two guys to play in. Check this out.
He's been credited with helping to win the Second World War and blamed for prolonging the conflict in Vietnam. But every battle he fought alone. Like a monument carved in granite, he stood as a symbol of American virtue, strength, and courage. He was a man of few words, but when he spoke, he meant what he said.
My goal is to raise $500 million for the Hey You Trust Me Foundation and to Mars Aeronautical Museum. In 1997, I made that poster and tried to get the Boys and Girls Club of America to pick it up, but they turned me down. And I guess everything happens for a reason, because I'm still not giving up. And while I was in California, I came across Robin Petgrave to Mars Aeronautical Museum, and he's already helping kids in Compton, California, getting kids off the streets and giving them somewhere to go and something to do instead of hanging out on the streets and committing crimes. We want to take those clubs nationwide. The way this whole screenplay thing started, I got a small part in a movie with Matt Damon back in 1999. I found out the way he got his big break, he and Ben Affleck already knew they wrote the screenplay Good Will Hunting, but while I was there, I found out it was based on his life, and Ben's father was a janitor at Harvard, and they took stories from growing up and wrote a movie. So after hanging with him, I was like, well, what could I write about?
He liked life, and he liked making movies.
Back to day. What you just watched was 11 years ago. Okay, so here's the deal. We are going to tell the true story about the Apocalypse Now Squadron. That's Robert Duvall. Everybody knows the movie Apocalypse Now. In real life, that was my biological father's helicopter squadron. And they were such badasses that they even did a G.I. Joe doll about them. So anyway, we're going to tell the true story about the Apocalypse Now Squadron and how the war affected the family's life. And let me tell you how this works. Okay, in the very beginning, you're gonna see that I was born the day John Wayne won his first and only Academy Award, which is unreal, right? All right, so after being in a movie with Matt Damon, The Legend of Bagger Vance, I found out I was born on the same day of the Academy Awards, and then I went to do research to find out who won that night, and John Wayne won his first and only Academy Award. So in the screenplay, you're going to see when I'm born, my father comes in the room and the Academy Awards are on in the background, and no one ever saw the Duke cry, but the moment you see the Duke wipe a tear, you're going to see this little baby. You're going to see a tear roll down the baby's face as if something was transferred, and you're going to hear my father's voice as the voiceover say, man, he went through a lot to get where he is. And the inciting incident, you're going to see once I'm born, my father is getting on the airplane to go to Vietnam, and he wrote, he gave my mom a hug and that kind of thing, and he got on the airplane, and he looked out the window, and he wrote, Mama was crying, Daddy had the look of worry in his eye, a wife holding a 1-month-old son waving goodbye. Thoughts ran through the young man's mind, probably the same thoughts all soldiers ponder. Will I live? Will I die? Will I be blind, maimed, helpless, and in? Little did he realize the wounds he'd carry for the rest of his days. He gets to Vietnam, and he gets off the aircraft, and he gets back on, and only thing that's changed, and it says 1 year later, he's now wearing a black Stetson cowboy hat, and he's got ribbons on his uniform. So you don't get to see what happened to him in Vietnam. Fast forward to when I'm 5 years old, I'm sitting in my grandfather's lap, holding an Easter bunny. I'm sitting in my grandfather's lap, holding an Easter bunny. And by the way, my grandfather looks like Mel Gibson, but anyway, holding an Easter bunny, and this is a true story, man. I was about to start crying, And I said, "Granddaddy, where'd my daddy go? When's my daddy coming home?" And you hear the grandfather's voice as a voiceover say, "This little boy would ask me these questions for the next 37 years and a few months." And as I found out in life what my father went through, everyone else gets to find out. But from that, I love my stepfather. That's my dad. And but from age 7 till ninth grade in high school, he used a belt as discipline. In ninth grade, I was taken away and put in foster care. And when I was in foster care, the communal foster home, I had to listen to this little girl cry herself to sleep every night that was sexually abused. And it's kids like that, man. They can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And after foster care, I almost committed suicide, but thank God I didn't. There's been a lot of divine intervention in my life, but the arc of the movie starts coming back up. And so here's the thing, man. I need to, I've worked 17 years on this thing. We're going to tell the true story about the Apocalypse Now Squadron and how the war affected the family's life. And the best part about this whole movie, I've always wanted this to be not-for-profit, where all of the proceeds go to help abused kids, disadvantaged kids, and veterans. So the movie, back in 2007, I wanted it to come out on John Wayne's 100th birthday, which is May 26, 2007. But we're going to do it 2020. But divine intervention happened that day. The local news did a 2-part special about me and my father at 6 p.m. exact same time on the West Coast. Irvine, California did a dedication to Steve Larrabee exact same time on this earth. That was divine intervention for God to tell me to keep going. And it's time now. Everything's happened for a reason. And by the way, my dad's best friend, Steve Larrabee, that's him. And he looks just like Brad Pitt. And by the way, Brad Pitt, that's your role in the movie. And his nickname is Old Man. So Brad, since you are an old man, you can play Steve Larrabee. But guess what? Steve Larrabee is buried 40 feet away from John Wayne in California. And I wouldn't find that out until I went cross country with the National Vietnam Press. And this story has already won a gold award at the Vietnamese Film Awards called The Young Man from America. And that was 9 years ago. So we're going to tell the true story about the Apocalypse Now Squadron and how the war affected the family's life. And by the way, Matt Damon, you were an inspiration, man. What you and Ben Affleck did. So here we are. So Mel and Milo, check it out. Contact me, the Hey You Trust Me Foundation. This is going to go down in the record books, man. It's the first not-for-profit movie out of Hollywood. The best of the best are going to be in this. And we're going to break every box office record ever set. See ya.